visiting for the first time, please feel free to go through our page. We've had a lot of amazing speakers today, and we've had great sessions with conservation organizations that you might be interested to know more about. And another thing that we should mention is that we have a few jobs on the Conservation Careers website. So please find time to go through those jobs and see if there's something that you would be interested to apply for. We're back with the conservation spotlights, and in this spotlight we have Water Resource Management Authority, and representing the Water Resource Management Authority is Mr. Lubaba Douglas. Mr. Lubaba, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, I'm glad to be here.
Okay, Mr. Lubaba is Senior Research and Planning Officer, and he will be telling us a lot about the work that Water Resource Management Authority does, the kind of prospective career opportunities that are involved at WARMA. I will hand over to you now to start, sir.
Thank you so much, Maina. We are glad as WARMA to partner with you and share with the audience with what we do. And now WARMA is at the epic of water resource management in Zambia. And I think through this platform, we are glad to tell you how we manage water sustainably. So in today's presentation, I want to share with you what WARMA does and how it does its work. And at the end of this presentation, I'm expected to have some questions from you. And also, I know that the audience, I have a lot of prospective graduates will be looking to be employed at the authority, and our authority is a very nice place to work. So I'll start with who we are, so that you may know what WARMA really does. Although I'm having a technical problem with my slide, because I think it's not moving when I try to move it. So it's quite of a challenge, but then I'll be speaking. If you don't see my slide, then you don't have to worry about it. So what is WARMA? I mean, WARMA, we are a statutory body which we came through under the Water Resource Management Act of 2011. So this was after the repeal of the Water Act of 1947. So what are we mandated to do? So WARMA, we are mandated to manage, develop, conserve, preserve, and protect all water resources in Zambia. So with that, we are also mandated to make sure that we sustainably and equitably allocate all water resources to Zambia. So we have got different water users in Zambia, as you know. So all the users of water, we have to make sure that they have access to water of right quality and quantity. So as an authority, Zambia is divided into about 6 catchments. So we have the Zambezi catchment, Katue catchment, Ruangwa, Chambeshi, Shirokla, and Tanganyika catchment. So these are, we are helped to manage water resources. So according to the Act, we are supposed to have what we call catchment councils. So management of water resources at the catchment should be done by the catchment councils. Then within the catchment, there are what we call sub-catchments, and the sub-catchment management of that and regulation of water resources at the sub-catchment is supposed to be done by the sub-catchment. Then when you look at we go to a smaller scale, we are supposed to have water users association. So this consists of different water users in different localities. So with that also, they are supposed to be also coordinate and also manage the water resources at that small scale within the sub-catchment. So normally what we do as an authority, we have got a network of what we call gauging stations throughout the country. So we have in total of 209 gauging stations, which we use for monitoring of surface water quantity. So they measure the water levels and the discharges, which from the streams and the rivers, which are moving at a particular time. So within our network, we have got what we call those which are automated. They are able to transmit information every 15 minutes to our server in Lusaka. Then the other ones, we have got gauge readers who go 3 times in a day to record the water level, so that we know how much water at every particular gauging station we have, which is flowing. Then at the same gauging station, we are able to also monitor other what we call hydrological information like rain, humidity, wind speed, and these, they are able to help us when we are able to do the planning for water resources in a particular catchment. So it's not only surface water that we manage, we also manage groundwater resources. So with that also, we have got monitoring bores around the country, which we are able to measure how the water is changing in time. So we're able to monitor if we have too much rainfall or we have less rainfall. We need to know how water is changing so that we are able to plan well as we allocate our water resources. So besides the quantity, we also manage or monitor all quality water in Zambia. So we have got also the network of water monitoring stations dotted in countries. So this is also surface and groundwater. So here I'm just showing you, like in the Wapura catchment, the number of monitoring stations that we monitor. So this is has to make sure that we check if they are in compliance with what we call the ambient water quality. So in Zambia, WARMA, working with other stakeholders like ZEMA, ZABS, and other organizations, have developed what we call ambient water quality. So these are catchment specific. So each catchment has its own standards. So with that, we're able to monitor how the water is changing with time. So if, for instance, in the Copper Belt, we have a program which we constantly monitor the water which is flowing in rivers and in the underground based on these ambient water quality standards that have been developed. So the other thing that we do is what we call water resource allocation and planning. So this allocation, we have to make sure that access is given to water for all domestic water users. Domestic water users are given first priority rather than anything else, so that you should be able to use water for cooking, for any other activities that you use, and that you don't even need to pay. So WARMA has to facilitate that you have water of acceptable quality and quantity. Then the environment is given second priority. So even as we allocate water, we ensure that enough water is left in the rivers, in the streams, and somewhere where there are obstructions, so that the aquatic ecosystem is also protected. And then the third priority is given now to commercial water users, like those who are involved in irrigation system, who are using recreation, mining, and hydropower. And then those ones, they're able now to apply for what we call water permit to WARMA, so that we permit them based on the water which is available in a particular catchment or in a river stream. Then we are able to allocate the water that they require. They might require more water, but then when we do the assessment, we might tell them that based on the water that we have in this catchment, we might not be able to give you all this. All you need is this much, and that's what we give you as the authority. The other thing that WARMA does is also what we call countrywide flood focusing. So we are able to focus floods before they happen and be able to communicate the information to different stakeholders like the disaster management unit, the Red Cross, so that they can be able to pass the information to the affected area so that action can be made. If people need to move from the area so that they protect their livelihood, so that we don't have disaster. So this we do in collaboration with the partners, and we have got a system that we use for doing that. Then the other thing which is of the interest to you, especially because we are representing conservation, we are also mandated to make sure that we conserve, protect, preserve all water resources in Zambia. So we do a number of activities in collaboration with different stakeholders. So we have done what we call a water resource protection area map in collaboration with WWF and other organizations, which has been developed in Zambia. And with this map, which was developed based on 3 categories, where we had looked at water provision, aquatic sensitivity, and looking at the streams where they are in terms of other aspects. We developed this map, which could be used now for mapping or delineating an area as a water resource protection. So in an act, WARMA, we are supposed to recommend to the minister responsible of water development if we determine that such an area or geographic location is important with regards to water provision or aquatic importance and should be gazetted as a water resource protection area. So we do a lot of works in terms of mapping of these areas and doing ground trooping and check the areas, then we recommend to the minister. So like in this slide, I've shown you there are 2 maps. One is on water resource protection areas, the other one is also for groundwater. So even for groundwater, we should be able to map all the water recharge areas zones in Zambia, so that in terms of planning, we be able to share information with different stakeholders so that they are integrated in their planning. We don't want a situation like Lusaka is growing and all the potential water resources, the recharge areas that have been built up, then we'll be running out of water. So we need to protect these areas. The other thing we do is also to do what we call water resource assessment in different catchment and sub-catchment for the sole purpose of determining the water availability and water demand, so that is able to help us as we allocate our water. The other thing which also we do, which is also very, very important, is to also to sustainably manage the surface and water, surface and groundwater resources. And this is done through ensuring that the people, if you want to drill a bore, it is done in a proper manner. So to that effect, there is even an SI law which compel you to register or to get authorization from WARMA as you drill a bore. So in such that we send our inspectors who are supposed to come to your place where you intend to bore, to drill a bore, to check that the prescribed conditions are met in terms of the sources of pollution to where you want to drill a bore, and also the other bores nearby based on the aquifer type. And this is simply to make sure that the water is protected from pollution, from source of pollution, and also to avoid what we call over obstruction of water resources. And then also we monitor the drilling companies, those who are in the drilling bores, they register with WARMA to ensure that all the bores which are drilled, they meet a certain standards which have been prescribed. And this is very, very important. This helps that the bores that we are having shouldn't be self-standard, avoiding to have bores which seals or collapse after you spend so much money. And also within WARMA, we generate a lot of information. And this information we archive, we manage it, and we also disseminate. This information could be in form of hydrological information, hydrogeology information, water quality information, and any other information to stakeholders. So like students who are studying, researchers and other organizations, they normally approach WARMA and access this information for different purposes. And the other thing that WARMA does is also to ensure that we enforce the Act and its regulation, because as you know, we have got different players in this sector. So there are regulations which are in the Act and which are supposed to be followed. So we ensure that we enforce, even when you have a bore, you drill a bore to a source of contamination, then WARMA inspectors will come there, and then we ensure that that activity is not normally done, just to preserve the water resources and also to protect human life. The other thing we have is what we call dispute or conflict resolution, because as you know, water have got different competing users. So you might have upstream and downstream water users. So this resource has to be shared. It's a very, very valuable resource. So you might find others might want to use more and disadvantage others. And with that results a lot of conflict. They might over-obstruct, they might not be following their permit conditions. So that would result in conflict where water would be disrupted from reaching downstream. So with regards to those conflicts, the authorities at the helm of that be able to make sure that all the water-related conflicts they are settled, and everyone has his share that is required to use. So if you are thinking of joining the Water Resource Management Authority, it's quite a very, very good place to be. It offers a good opportunities, a diverse opportunity to different engineering or technical fields, like the ones if you have studied environmental engineering, you have done civil engineering, chemistry, biochemistry, all kind of different natural sciences. I think the authority is a place to work because we do a lot of things where we find your skill very, very valuable. Not only do we employ technical engineers, we also employ a lot of support staff. As we know that we are under the Act, we need to enforce, so we require inspectors, we require lawyers, we also require the accountant, people to do communications, to engage in stakeholders. So we need community workers, engagements, all kinds of these we are required to be at the authority. Then in terms of skill, if you have to be an engineer or a technical skill working at WARMA, even as you want at the university or elsewhere, there are certain important skills that you need to have so that you can have an advantage if you want to to advance in this professional. So you need to learn a lot of geographical information system, remote sensing, because you work in these remote sites, and with these systems, you are able to at least use information from the satellite data so that you can able to help us make a decision. You need to do a lot of modeling because we need to see how the system is changing with time. So you need to have some skills which we can help you to have different scenarios. If we do this to water, what will happen to the ecosystem? What will happen to the people living who are dependent on this ecosystem? So with this, I think I end my presentation. Thank you so much to everybody who was able to share what we do at the Water Resource Management Authority.
Thank you so much, Mr. Loaba. That was a great presentation. I, for one, am very excited and comforted to know that there is a whole body, a whole team of experts working to make sure that our precious natural resources are taken care of and are utilized are utilized in a way that is sustainable and will ensure that availability for the next generations to come. It was great hearing your presentation. I was very excited. Again, this is something I keep bringing up because I'm excited every time people sharing presentations give us a breakdown on what you have to study or who works in these organizations. I'm really, really excited again that you mentioned you don't have to be an engineer or a researcher to work in WARMA, but there are so many other careers that you can pursue in the authority. So obviously there's so many questions for you today. I think you got a lot of people's attention, and someone out there is asking, what can I do to be, what do I need to study to be a senior research and planning officer like you? Is there a specific program that they should be focused on, or skills that they should be focused on as well?
So to do research, obviously, if you have to do natural sciences, I think it's very, very important for you. Also, not necessarily natural sciences, even some social sciences. I mean, we do social research as well. So we have the linkages between the natural resources that we have and the social aspect, because most of these resources they are used by humans, and there's a competing for such resources. So even as a social scientist, you can also be a researcher, but then you might need a combination when you have to go and do your advanced degree. So you can do a degree in integrated water resource management, centers, or different components of water. So that could be that. You could do some integrated studies like engineering, like in environmental science, natural resources. So these are different components of nature, like water, the environment itself, and other things. So it could be quite available for you to be a best suit for WARMA.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I hope whomever asked this question has got their answers. Another question, and this is one that keeps coming because there's so many people out there really looking forward to working in protecting our natural resources and conserving wildlife and conserving water. There are a few people asking, do you have internships or volunteer programs as the Water Resource Management Authority?
Thank you so much for asking this question. I think I'm glad to announce that the authority has got actually a policy on the interns. I think each and every time, I assure you, have interns who are working. As I speak to you, we have interns who work after 6 months. So we have got a policy, like every 6 months, if you have done internship, you can go. So that depends. If you are like in school, you can have attachments, but if you are finished a graduate, you are looking to build to attain certain skills for your job, I think you can apply to the authority for internship and you'll be considered. So we have got a lot of activities that you do. You'll be exposed to so many things, and you learn a lot when you come to the authority.
Thank you so much for that. You know what I like about this question is almost everyone, if not everyone that we've asked about volunteer and internship opportunities has actually said, yes, we do, and you can drop off a letter as and when you feel like you want to intern or volunteer with us. This shows that there is a lot of opportunity out there to work in conservation, to learn on the job. And as someone that works in conservation, I know that there is a lot of giving yourself on the job without expecting so much. And being an intern, it's a really great way to learn. So I'm really glad that you two came on board and said, yeah, you can drop off a letter as and when you're interested. Another interesting question is, what projects do you have running right now that look at the ways in which we can store rain, that look at ways in which we can preserve or recycle rainwater for future use?
I think at the moment the concept, we have got smaller ones, but then we are looking at water stress areas. Look, the Act has mandated us to delineate water stress areas so that we develop measures and ensure that we have sustainable management of water resources. Obviously, harvesting rainwater is one of the strategies that could be used to ensure that the resource is not wasted. But that's not all. We also have, maybe for you should know that nowadays we have seen streams when we are young, or before then there are a lot of waters, but now they have dried up. What do we do? I mean, people dependent on those streams. And also, so with that also, we are coming up with concept to ensure that we do what we managed the rainwater through the gullies, that rainwater, they should be able to sustain some of the streams, so the water should be flowing. I think WARMA, in collaboration with the GIZ and the ministry, if you go to Makoye area, you find that some of the rivers, they are being restored, which we have been lost and people are. But with rainwater, I think it's an important one which we are considering at the concept stage, such that the places where are having little water, little rainfall, they could be able to have the water. Again, even in Lusaka here, we have got a lot of runoff again, which goes to side because it cannot go down. Then that water is lost to them. Then we have got the problem of water, like in some of these places we have in our compounds. So around that technology also is something that we are also thinking of seriously, and is part of the strategy for the future of the authority. Thank you.
Thank you so much again. And a similar question has just arisen. So you spoke about, well, generally water harvesting, and you talked of runoff. So if you met me today in the street and you wanted me, you need to educate me on runoff and how to harvest water from a domestic level, what would be your advice to me?
If I met you, and I think I will tell you one thing. Water is a precious resource in Zambia. Sometimes we think that we have got a lot of water, but then we need to conserve that water once we have it. I mean, when it passes, it rains. I think what you should know, we should have enough capacity in our homes to be able to store that water that we can use for something else, not only drinking. I mean, you can use to wash our clothes, to wash our cars, to do some gardening with that water which is stored. If our capacity is high, then we should be able to do that. And for those who have got nice homes with nice roofs where the water is flowing in one place, it's one place where we can be harvesting the water. I know even in Lusaka, there are places which are not serviced, but with that simple technology of saving the water, you should be able to at least keep some water for a period of time to use at your home.
Okay, thank you so much. And another one goes just to build up on the answer you gave on internships. They are wondering what your location is. Where can they drop off these internship application letters?
Yeah, normally if you're in Lusaka, you can find us at Longmakers, just along this Harry Kinkata Road, which is very close to the shopping center which is being constructed. We belong to the National Pension Scheme. Remember, there is a famous bridge along that road. Just by the corner, you are going to find WARMA, that's the headquarters area. But again, as I mentioned, we are not only located in Lusaka, we still have places in different catchments. In the northern part of Zambia, we have got an office in Kasama, a catchment office. So you can drop your application at the catchment office, but I think it has to be addressed to human resource. In Livingston, we have got an office. You can drop your application there. In Kabwe, in Ndola, we also have an office. And as a matter of fact, we are also opening some satellite offices in Chipata and Soweto and Mansa. Yeah.
Okay, great. Just one last one before you go. Speaking of catchment offices, we have a question about challenges that WARMA is facing in the mentioned catchment areas. What are some of the main challenges that you are facing in some of these catchment areas?
I think the biggest challenge that we have as an authority is to ensure that what we call the governance structure, according to the acts that are implemented or instituted and operationalized. You see, as I mentioned in my presentation, how these water resources should be managed. We should have at the national level, we have one. Then at catchment level, we should have the catchment councils. So the catchment councils, sub-catchment councils, and water users association has never been instituted at the moment, because I think we have got challenges to do with it at the moment in terms of sustainability financially once we establish this. So this is one of the biggest challenges. Then when it comes to now our stakeholders, what we are biggest challenges is encroachment of this river system that we have. So you find that people now, they are building just along the river. They are doing a lot of activities, sand mining in the rivers, disturbing the flow in the rivers, having that downstream not having waters because of the activities. So meaning they are also deteriorating water quality. So these activities normally they are not good, because this water, if it is kept in a good way, it should be able to benefit all of us. So I think
Hi, Mr. Luaba, are you still there? Unfortunately, I think you are muted.
oh, I'm sorry, internet I just cut and I lost that connectivity. So that
Yes,
my last
back.
my last comment I could say, like, I think it's important for all of us to ensure that the water resources that we have is protected and is looked after well, because all of us, we are users of water, whether we like it or not. I think the first thing that we do when we wake up, we have to clean our teeth, we have to bath, we have to use water. So that's why we need to protect and conserve it. I think it's a very good act. Even when you see people who are doing activities that are not good to water resources to the stream, it's important that we also take note and question them. We question the activity that is happening. So we should all of us be vigilant and all of us be able to manage our water resources.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lubaba. And I also agree. We all know the importance of water. Like all our natural resources, it's important that we play our part in conserving it. Again, something that we'll keep repeating is you do not have to actually work in conservation or have a whole career in conservation for you to do your part. You can do your part at home, like Mr. Lubaba mentioned earlier. So for those of you that are just joining us, we were talking to Mr. Lubaba, who is the Senior Research and Planning Officer at the Water Resource and Management Authority. Sir, do you have any last comments for students and young graduates watching you now, so far ahead in your career with all this rich history in conservation, before we go?
I think I can just have one word of encouragement to the young graduates who are looking for careers in conservation. I think what they need to do is to ensure that they work hard, extra hard, and also they're able to, when they finish, be able to volunteer, to do some voluntary internship. They are going to learn a lot from there. We should not rush to look for paying jobs sometimes, especially like ours. It's fulfilling to look for a career in conservation, even as you volunteer. Rewards are seen afterwards. Imagine you are taking care of the environment, even as you are looking for a career. It's a rewarding profession, and I'm telling you, once you enter into conservation, you'll never want to work anywhere else.
Thank you so much for that. Working in conservation, according to Mr. Luaba, is rewarding and very fulfilling. Something that you too should look forward to. Again, thank you so much for joining us for this session. Don't go away. We'll be back with something even more exciting. And thank you so much, Mr. Luaba. Thank you so much for joining us one more time, and have a great day, sir.